Got it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Retribe chat today. Oh, welcome to the Elephant and Castle community, to the Retribe live talk today. I'm Nick from Retribe, and joining me is Sola Egbale from Real Talk. Shola, I was actually just thinking about it, and this is the third time you've been a guest on these Facebook Lives, and I think you and Steve may have been the first ever guests when we
Wow.
did our first Facebook Live way back in 2020
Yeah, I remember
or
that during
2019,
the lockdown.
2019, 2019. It
Was it
was like,
2019? Wow, it's a couple of good 3 years ago. Yeah, during the
yeah, it's
just before we went into the lockdown, was it then?
it was
2019.
just,
Yeah. I remember. I
yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Brother,
we've been bantering for that long then, Nick, eh? That's good.
we
That's a good
it,
look.
it's good that we're still friends.
Yeah. None of us has said anything untoward to each other yet. No, I'm joking, but it's all good, man. It's all good. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for inviting
Thanks.
me back again. Brilliant. Good to see you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to see you too, my friend. And just tell us what have you been doing since the last time we talked?
Yeah, it's been a lot. I mean, since that 2019, I'm sure I've been back once or twice,
Yeah.
haven't I?
Yeah.
Over there,
Oh
over
yeah,
the
yeah.
years.
I
Yeah,
think this is your third visit. Yeah.
this is
So
the
I think,
first one, so it's
yeah,
coming like a sort of annual thing, then, isn't it? And
it is. Yeah.
it's good, Nick, in a sense. I think you've been really consistent in sort of tracking, what we do at Real Talk, which is great, because I believe life's all about consistency, and persistency, and I think you kind of really emulate that by what you're doing. So it's great to be on board again. Yeah, Real Talk this year, Nick, just to let you know, we've not publicized as much as we were over the last couple of years. I believe that during the pandemic, we felt the onus to really go for it in terms of doing a lot of social media, bits, just making ourselves really known, getting that visibility, if you like, across those
Mhm.
platforms. Because obviously, we couldn't go out, we couldn't see each other, we couldn't have that, that engagement. So it was all about social media. Now, um, we're kind of open again, as it were. We're still doing a lot more work on the ground. I mean, I use that term in the sense that, there's a lot of work and business that we do, the Real Talk does, that's maybe uncaptured, if you like, So we're really going to the grassroots of issues and situations. Remember that our mantra is to look at the root causes of situations, yeah, and then not just stir those aspects around, but come and bring tangible solutions, through the discussion, through opening areas up, really sort of reviewing what's what, and then looking for that solution. So we've been doing a lot of that, as I said, a lot of behind the scenes work, with young people and adults alike, because if we're just concentrating on young people, and then young people go back into their homes with their families, with their elders and so forth, and there's no change happening across the board, it means that the work is just undone. And so, we've been really concentrating a lot on that. We've developed a lot on our platform, the men's wellness platform, the forum every Thursday, which I'm chomping at the bit to see you there, Nick. I know you're going to be there soon. Every Thursday, men only, specifically men only, as we do that every Thursday, and that's been going. I believe as long as we've been talking to you, then, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's great. We have a good cross section of men that come on board, and rather than talk about mental health, Nick, I think I explained this before. We tag our line as men's wellness. Yeah, so we flip it. We've kind of flipped the script. We're looking at projecting more positivity, and that's not sweeping the issues under the carpet. It's just about saying, look, we can achieve that wellness amongst ourselves, and then project that and let it have ripple effect into all the different areas of our own lives as guys, which will then impact on the lives, our families, our partners, children, business aspects and so forth. So that's been going on great. We've also got the women's forum, which has been going on. And by the way, these were weekly forums, by the way. We've just changed slightly now to the men's. They've refused to let it go fortnightly. We suggested, look, let's do this every couple of weeks. They're like, no, we need to have this weekly. And that's even developed into more kind of one-to-one sort of engagement as well with guys. The ladies one, I'll just move on slightly with that. So we're in collaboration with an organization, another CIC, a community interest company called I Am In Me. Yeah, that's I Am in Me, CIC. Great platform that's hosted by a lady called Sasha, and she's been running that platform for over a year now, and it's absolutely fantastic. Prolific platform, and that goes on a Tuesday. So you can see what we've got there. We've got the two elements. We've got the men's side, and then the women's side. And the plan, it's an ongoing plan, obviously, is that when young people see that there's synergy, real synergy going on between the men and the women, that we're singing from the same hymn sheet, it provides a kind of drip feed impact down the line through our children, through the home life, and so forth. Yeah. So, inadvertently, young people then start to soak up, more positive role model situations. So that's what we've really been concentrating a lot on since we last spoke, Nick. Again, we've been more looking at. I'll tell you what, one of my call outs this year, a prayer from this year was that I wanted to develop more spiritually. I wanted more spiritual intelligence. We talk about emotional intelligence and so forth, and that's all good. But the foundation we got to find was that your spiritual life, to a degree, commands so many other areas of your life. And I say that, Nick, to say that the development that's going on within myself, even at the years that I'm at, I think I shared with you a couple of minutes ago that I'm giving thanks because I was just able to celebrate another year on this earth. And, we're out of this mindset world because we're a certain age and because we've got certain levels of experience, that we know it all. Because of course we don't. Every day is a massive learning curve. And, I've been doing that. And so through my own journey, I'm able to then, by God's grace, input that into what we do at Real Talk. And that's what Real Talk is literally all about. As I said to you before, Real Talk was born out of my own personal journey, my own personal experiences in life as a young man, and then, coming up to this stage. So it's an ongoing flow. And I believe, people are appreciating that, people that are connected with us, people that do have that ripple effect does touch them. They're being affected positively, and, we're just loving what we do because we're giving, we're constantly giving, and by giving, we're then by default receiving, so yeah, I'm very happy, very content in what I do, but at the same time, very passionate and still full of zeal, that, this message goes out far and beyond. I just wanted to share a little quote with you. I was reading it a couple of days ago by this man called Jalaluddin Rumi, and he said that yesterday I was clever. Yesterday I was clever because I wanted to change the world, right? Today, I'm paraphrasing by the way, today I'm wise because I'm changing myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I read that through a couple of times and I was like, this is what, this is the pinnacle of life, Nick, because if we're not revived within ourselves, if we don't change within ourselves, we've got no hope of, looking to put past that change to anybody, no matter how great the plan may be, no matter how much money we've got, no matter how much resources we've got. If there's no change and renewal and revival going on within ourselves, then we're just wasting our time. And so the main deal has got to be about, waking up every day and looking to be renewed and revived, on a daily basis. Yeah. So that our mindset is not just in a kind of conformity of, well, this is what I was doing 5 years ago. This is what I was doing 10 years ago. And therefore I need to continue like this. No, we reject that.
Yeah. I can't agree more with you. It's this thing of like, when I hear somebody say, I've got this and I'm good, that automatically brings up kind of little warning signs to me, because if we always say life changes, how can we not evolve, change with it? And my story is, and I'll tell you, we'll just jump right into all of this stuff. You said so many things that I wanted to come back at you with, but being as you, this quote just nails it as something for me to jump in and give you a bit of experience with. I've told you that my life has changed dramatically in the last 5 weeks. And we go back 6.5 years. I got sober. I started to live a more spiritual life. I started to live a life of what I was pursuing, humility and altruism and giving to others. And that was a journey where I was changing and evolving. And at about 4 years sober, 4 years, I really felt like
Congrats, yeah.
I finally got somewhere. This was like
Yeah.
2.5 years ago. I really felt that I'd gotten somewhere. And then something came into my life that I tried to control because I
Okay.
was like, because I wasn't used to that. So and then I
Okay.
learned I had to let go a little bit. And that was a
Right.
relationship. I met this partner,
Okay.
and she has 3 sons, and
Mm-hmm.
they all play ice hockey. So I was thinking to
Okay.
myself, oh, the universe has put this woman and these 3 boys in my life so that I can help, I can save them,
Sure.
which is
Yeah.
me going back into ego. And because of my fear,
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to try to control.
Yeah.
And I really struggled. And again, I worked at it. I prayed, I meditated,
Mm.
I sat, I did some work. I even took myself away for a little bit.
Yeah.
I cried. I changed.
Men
And then
cry too, Nick. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, I cry a lot.
Real men
Yeah,
cry too. Yeah.
real men
Go ahead.
cry.
Yeah.
And then me and my partner decided that we're our love is strong, and it was time for us to blend me with the family. And I moved into the family home because I'd been living in Soho in a little bachelor
Okay.
pad, and
Yeah.
so kind of having the best of both worlds, being a family man, but also having a retreat, which I think was very healthy because
Okay.
I wasn't then thrown straight into where I was 5 weeks ago. When I moved in here, I jumped
Sure.
straight back into ego and control because I
Mm.
was so scared and
Mm-hmm.
felt so powerless that I immediately jumped into, this family is going to be my ideal family. Like
Okay.
the kids are going to wake up when I say,
Yeah.
the kids are going to go to school when I say, the kids are
Yeah.
going to clean up, when all of this stuff. So I wanted to control. And
Yeah.
again, it was this thing, Shola, is that, because of I felt so powerless. My need to get that power back was by over controlling the situation. But thankfully, over the years, I've been given the
Mm-hmm.
tools to realize that this is just a transformation in my life. And rather than fight it,
Yeah.
so I told this story the other day. It was kind of like, when you're in an ocean and it starts to get choppy, and there's a little dinghy that you can reach up and grab because you can feel
Uh-huh.
you can be in control of it. You jump
Yeah.
in it, and all of a sudden you start moving the rudder, you start doing the sail, and you don't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than taking this kind of really courageous leap of jumping in the water and just going, I'm letting go, I'm letting
Mm.
go, and ride with it, and ride with
That's
it.
it.
And so this is that quote that you said really reminds me of, is the fact that as individuals, specifically where I'm talking to the men that I work with, is this need to control life. They need to be the
Mm-hmm.
family man. They need to be the provider. They need to be the guy that doesn't cry or show any weakness. They need to, all of these things that we feel so powerless over when we've lost a bit of control.
Mm.
Fear steps in. We start to suppress our emotions. Our anger comes out. It can be very misplaced anger. It can, these emotions that it can hurt,
Mm.
it can scare, and
Mm.
it just makes for the family unit, the ecosystem, to not function properly. And I'm so glad that you're working, as you say, with the unit, with both men and with both women,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that, if we're all working as individuals, but we're not working as units, then the systems that we're in are still not going to be able to enable us to
Not.
function and
It's not
flow.
going to happen. It's not
And
gonna...
I think it seems to be a thing that you get when you get a little bit older. Is just, I don't know the answer. All I know is I've got to let go and
And,
trust the universe and jump
yeah.
in.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're so right, Nick. Just to briefly come in on that. I mean, look, you mentioned about letting go. It's something that's got to be done. And you mentioned about ego, and look, these are all things that we're conditioned by. We talk about society. I often say to people, look, we keep using this word society so glibly,
Mm.
yeah, because society is made up of communities, right? Communities are made up of families. Families are made up of individuals. And so the finger still comes right back to us, right back to our doorstep. So if we, as part of that society, are not willing enough, as you mentioned it, to let go, right, and let God, right, we're made. We're made. There's no two ways. Look, I'm not going to get into it. And I'm not talking about religion now, Nick. I'm talking about a way of life. Yeah, we're talking about a way of life here. And the more we read, and seek to gather knowledge, indirectly, then we start to become wiser. We become wiser, and we're able to then put out, some good sound bites and some good nuggets to people that we can then couple with our own life's experience. And then people, look, young people, I said the ultimate aim really is to reach this generation, this younger generation. Yeah, everything I do right now, by God's grace, it's not for me. I'm talking about a generational legacy. We hear this thing about generational wealth. Well, the thing is, Nick, wealth, true wealth, is in the understanding of any situation, right? So it's in the understanding of money, if we want to talk about wealth in that respect. It's in the understanding of our relationship. It's in the understanding of love. Love is not enough to sustain and maintain and preserve a marriage or any relationship. It's in the understanding of that concept. You know what I mean? When we talk about the love languages, how you want to be loved by your partner and how your partner wants to be loved by you. We've got to tap into those areas as opposed to this whole generic thing of love. And so true understanding, real wealth is in the understanding of any concept.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and this is what we're putting out. And as I said, this is what and I'm not just saying this for effect, this is what I'm learning and implementing, into my own life. But it's got to be done with that humility, by laying down, how we were before, how we were sort of governing our lives before. You mentioned about control. I was kind of like chucked into myself, because before, when you were talking about, you come into the family setup and it's going to be done this way, it's going to be done that way, we're going to do that, and they're going to wake up at this time, and this is going to happen. And I laughed and I thought, you know what? Look, we don't even know each other like that, but that's how I was at a certain time. And that's what I'm learning, Nick, on a daily basis, right? Not to live my life that way, because it doesn't work. It just does not work. And it throws up a whole heap of problems and issues, and that kind of joy that we're supposed to be feeling and experiencing in this life, that joy that we're supposed to be projecting to other people. Imagine now we're talking about mentoring and, and advising other people, and we're walking about, right, with a glum face, looking stressed out. And then you want to go and talk to somebody, you want to come and advise me, you want to come and mentor me. It's just, you know what I mean? And again, look, our young people are not stupid. They're very much more clued up, I believe, than we ever were. They have access to so much information, that we didn't have in our time. And so they will ask questions, and they are very much more perceptive. I said to you before, Nick, that again, Real Talk was born on this concept. I was a young man once. I know you can see a few gray hairs where I was watching this, but I was young once. And, we weren't listened to, Nick. I don't know whether you'll agree with that. We were just seen, but not heard. You know what I mean? There's certain things in my life now, and I'm not bleating over them or sort of lamenting, but it's just got to be said. It's because it's been real. Certain things that I said as a young man in my life that, elders, parents just threw out the window, just rejected wholeheartedly. And I was like, but why would you do that? So when I have my children now, 16-year-old, 27-year-old, and 30-year-old, 12-year-old granddaughter, and I'll tell you what, Nick, I listen. I listen to what they've got to say. You know why? Because this world's ever changing, as we've said, and there are elements that I may not be privy to, but they are. So to me, it just makes sense that let me listen to where these are coming from. Let me hear what their mindset's about. Yeah, and let's now couple it with the different levels and snippets of experience I can give to them. Yeah, and so then we have a forum that's breeding discussion. We have a forum then that there's the relationship. There's something happening. There's something, something building. But if we just throw away what a young person is saying just because they're young, right? When we go back through history, I love history. And when I go back through history, right, and you see kings and queens, right, were sitting on thrones from teenage years, Nick, right? They were ruling countries and empires. So how dare we turn around now in this age and turn around and say, well, you're too young, you don't understand, you don't get it. The key is that with a young person, yes, they're full of zeal, full of passion, they just need guidance, right? I read somewhere, I think it was to do with Plato, one of these philosophers, that young people, because of the development of the mind and the brain, young people will always need guidance, no matter what the generation. Yeah, they will always need guidance from somewhere, hopefully an elder person, i.e. parents, or, from that family makeup. They will always need guidance. And so it's our duty then to provide that guidance. If we're not doing that, I can't really see then what we're doing. If we're so busy amassing money and amassing things, materialism and so forth, we're so busy doing that. That is not, to me, in my own humble opinion, that I don't see that as a positive role model influence to a young person. Yeah. I think I mentioned to you many years ago, Nick, I'd amassed a certain amount of money, equivalent today of about 1.5 million. I was 20 years old, gotten through all kind of different means. But did that make me a good role model for people around me? Of course it didn't. Of course it didn't, because the way it was got wasn't the right way. You know what I mean? And obviously, because it wasn't got the right way, it just frittered away. And it's like, what was the point? Right? And so I go back to I said before, that real wealth is right embedded in the understanding of any situation, whether it be financial, whether it be emotional. And this is what I said before, Nick, that kicked off by saying, look, my journey this year, 2022, really has all been about, we're just praying for guidance and seeking more spiritual understanding, right? Because that's what governs whatever happens in our lives physically and emotionally. You know what I mean? To do with our health, our welfare, and that's where we've been, Nick. That's what we've been engaged in. I see a lot of synergy just in these few minutes that we've spoken in. Remember, this is not rehearsed. This is just off the cuff, but we're seeing so many areas here that gel and that just make sense. And I hope that people watching this and gleaning something, are going to be sort of blessed and sort of picked up by by what they hear and what they see.
Yeah, I think that anybody of our age too, like I know we're guys. I know I'm in my 50s. I don't want.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah,
I'll put my hand up. I'm not hiding it. I'm not running from it. Yeah.
And I think, like you said, there's so many cultural and ideological pressures put on gentlemen to be, the provider, the wealthy, have your mortgage paid off, have your kids' tuitions all sorted out, just to be the man.
Yeah.
And what I've realized, and again, and I know you echo that, is that the real measure of a man comes in, how he helps others, and it doesn't have to be financial. It does the ability to show up, the ability to understand that division.
That's it.
You're black, I'm white, we have to be divided. And this is what media all wants. You're red, you're blue, divided. You're pro-vax, I'm anti-vax, we're divided. It's all of this division, and my knowing now is that we're all one. We're all humanity. You are me, I am you. My sisters are my sisters, my brothers are my brothers. We're all connected, and the more we break down the walls and get rid of this division of mainstream media and politics and bureaucracy, the more we just realize that our neighbors are our neighbors. Let's just help one another.
I mean, Nick, just to carry on what you're saying. Look, there's good and bad in every. I'm not even going to use race, because as far as I'm concerned, there's only one race, and that's the human race.
Human race, yeah. Right?
There's only one race. Yes, there are different ethnicities. You understand what I'm saying? Different tribes. People come from different places, and there's good and bad in all of those. Yeah. And I'm very vociferous on this point. There's only one race, which is the human race. Just the thing about said about the men thing, that we talk about being conditioned. We're being conditioned, and we, to a degree, we pay into an agenda, don't we? We pay into an agenda, we pay into a narrative. And this is why I said before that we can't afford anymore just to conform to what so-called society wants to read out to us and say, well, this is the way to be, right? We need to start thinking for ourselves, right? We need to dig deeper into our own spiritual prowess, which I believe that to a degree, so many of us, especially us guys, I'm a man, I put my hands up to it, that we've laid down that prowess for whatever reason, right? Whether we've done it deliberately, whether we've done it, just out of ignorance, we've just not known what time it was. We've all been there, but there's got to be that transparency and that honesty now, you know, wherever we've dropped the ball, pick it up again, say, look, this is what happened, and let's get on with it. I want to share another quote with you. This is a guy by a guy called Thomas Paine, and love this guy. He was an activist, American activist back in those days, and what he said that he was a believer in God, but he didn't tap into organized religion.
Yeah.
Right, and that's me. That's where I'm coming from, because he says the real man smiles in trouble. Yeah, he gathers strength from distress and grows brave by reflection. Yeah, I just say that the real man smiles in trouble. You know, he smiles in trouble. He gathers strength from distress and grows brave by reflection. And you see, the thing, Nick, isn't this what we're doing? We, you know what I'm saying? Whatever distresses, disturbances we've had through our lives, we've looked at them, we've owned them, right? They're being addressed, they're being reflected upon, and to a degree, we can sit. But look, at the end of it, we can actually a smile. I smile more now than I did 5, 10 years ago, because you know when you've got it all up in you, and it's like, oh, you're moving about in a certain way, and you may not inadvertently want to be frowning, but you are frowning because your brain is just weighed down with all this stuff, all this matter that's just floating about. But when you can address it, put it out there, the forums that I mentioned before, Nick, in terms of the men's wellness, guys are able to come, you know, to a safe space. It's confidential, you know, start to build relationship. When you build relationship, trust is being gathered. Yeah. And then, you know, we can look at different projects. If you don't trust somebody, how can, look, if I've got no relationship with you, for example, I don't know you, I don't speak to you, we don't have this banter. You can phone me up at any time, I can contact you anytime. That's relationship. And through that relationship, that starts to build a degree of trust. Yeah. So the next time now we have a little conflab and you say, oh, shut up, by the way, this and that's going on, or vice versa, I'll do the same with you. The tendency is we're probably going to want to get engaged and get into it. Why? Because we've started to develop some kind of relationship. Right. But if there's nil relationship, and I come to you and say, right, Nick, you know what? I've got this project. I possibly want you to invest. You probably say, yeah, sure, it all sounds good. But you know what? There's a niggling thing in the back of your mind that, hold on, I don't really know this guy. You know? Sounds great. The concept sounds fantastic, but I don't know you, Shola. Right? Same thing. I can say to you, but sounds brilliant, but I don't really know you. Know what if? And what if? And all these doubts start to creep up. But if we're talking, we're responding to each other, we're getting to understand where we're coming from. And Nick, I just wanted to throw in there. I hope I'm not talking too much. There's so much. I'm full up, bro. Full up.
Go. Yeah.
You know, this thing of this whole aspect of, you know, we're saying that men don't talk. That myth, that narrative needs to just be busted up, because men do talk, right? We do have conversations. Yeah, we do reason together. What I'd like to say now is that we now, from those conversations and from, you know, those kind of confabs that we have, that we should be looking for the outcomes. Yeah, there's got to be a positive. There's got to be a result coming from it. Otherwise, all we're doing is stirring a load of facts around, a load of theories around, and it's like, well, where's the movement from this thing? Where's the change?
That's why I love what you do, is that you create regular safe spaces for people to talk. And I think ultimately we can look at all of the different protocols out there, whether people go to church or they go to meditation or yoga or 12-step programs, more or less, all of them have the same kind of principles, you know, to get to a certain place of altruism and connectiveness and at oneness. But to get there, I needed to trust somebody. I needed to be vulnerable.
That's
and I was just so broken where I was vulnerable, where I was like, I don't, and I was like, I don't know. I'm lost. I need help. And I think that in creating any conversation that moves along, I think that first thing is that omission of help me, or I'm lost, or I'm sorry, or I don't know.
Helplessness, yes.
You know, of just kind of, you know, so, and that can happen with, you know, a couple, you know, maybe coming home from work and they're stressing over some like financial situations. And just in that, honey, I don't know. Then automatically both barriers are broken down. well, let's try to fix this together, rather than
Mm.
I've got this, I'm just going to go and get another job, and I'm going to spend another 6 hours out of the house, and just don't talk to me because I know what I need to do to fix this. Rather than,
Yeah.
rather than just people saying, or coming into a space saying, help me, I'm lost, I don't know.
Mm.
These are the first little bits of vulnerability. And I think it's
Yeah.
Brené Brown, who's some ultimate powerhouse woman who speaks about vulnerability. And she says, being vulnerable is
Mm.
putting yourself in a place to be judged. And I think that's fair enough. Like people do it every day. People are vulnerable, but it's such a big act of courage,
Oh, it's massive.
to
It's
yeah,
massive, Nick.
so I applaud anybody who literally, today can say to somebody, I'm sorry, I don't know. Leaders,
Yeah.
spouses, couples, teachers,
Yeah.
parents to
That's big.
children. And it's what I've learned with these youngsters. They're the biggest teachers now in my
Mm.
life, 13,
Definitely.
10, and 6.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
when I say to them, Shola,
Mm.
I'm sorry. I
Mm.
yelled at you and I shouldn't have.
Mm.
I'm sorry. There, I've heard people,
That's
growing up,
massive.
never tell a child that you're
This is
wrong
it.
because there's going to be
This
this
is it.
power.
This is
Look,
the problem. Yeah.
when I say I'm sorry, I raise my voice. Their
Mm.
eyes connect with me.
Mm-hmm.
They look at me and
There you
go,
go.
and there's this trust that is built in
Yeah.
saying I'm sorry, and
And
yeah,
respect, Nick. And respect. And
yeah,
respect. You actually get the respect that those children will be having for you, because you've kind of come off that so-called pedestal. Again, the world has taught them to believe that we're up on a pedestal and we cannot
mm,
fall down or cannot come down from that. You know what I mean?
mm,
And by just admitting that guilt or just saying sorry, it just opens the door for a newfound respect. And imagine if we're doing that on a regular basis. And that doesn't mean that we're now on same par with children in terms of. I believe there's always going to be a difference between the adult and the child.
sure, yeah,
Yeah, but to build that relationship that we talked about again, there's got to be some kind of parity. Yeah, it's
mm,
got to be there. And I believe that this is what's happening through what you do, what we do, and many other groups do. And I just believe there's got to be more of it. And there's got to be more of it. We mentioned at the beginning, consistency and
mm,
persistency, no matter what the flaws, no matter what the adversities, the
mm,
hurdles that we're going to face by doing this, because any good work is always going to come under attack. It's always
mm,
going to come under, you know what I mean? And we've got to press on. We've got to press on. We've got to do it because, as I said before, this is not so much about us anymore. This is about future,
mm,
right? This is about laying foundation. This is about creating this generational legacy, yeah, and allowing our children to be an asset for their own generation and generations beyond,
mm.
right? Because if we're not doing that, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I I think there's a lot of, and this was something that it brings me back to when you first started to talk at the beginning of this live, is that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And a lot of people will go, what do you mean healing? And
Mm,
I say it in terms of the fact that, post-war Western culture dominated by banks, politics, bureaucracy,
mm,
systems of wealth creation.
yeah,
And those systems of wealth creation basically have created, capitalism, materialism. They've created a
yep,
system where a very small amount of people control a mass amount of other people.
yeah,
And there's this huge disparity of wealth. And nobody can really dispute that. That is everybody understands it. And in doing so, what we've learned is that there's a lot of like white coat kind of laboratory doctor stuff that came
mm,
around in the 60s and 70s and 80s about how to raise a family.
mm,
And it's proven that those teachings that our parents taught us created a lot of harm. They created a
yep,
lot of trauma. You
yep,
know, like going against things like breastfeeding and nurturing youth to and babies to getting
mm,
them into formula and putting them in a crib in a box in a room and saying they have to cry themselves to sleep at night. That created a
mm,
lot of trauma and a lot of disconnect and a lot of
mm,
fear. And I think that, you know not only do I think we need to heal, Shola. I think the parents of today need
Yeah,
to heal. I think
definitely,
that, you
definitely.
know, and I think if we can kind of all acknowledge that we've become disconnected from humanity, you know,
Yes,
from how we've evolved as humans. We've evolved over tens of thousands of years in
this is it.
community.
This is it.
And now we're just silos of the system that helps rich people get richer, you know. So
Well, you see,
um
Nick, you see, this is it. This is the problem. Look, as you didn't know, I'm originally from Nigeria. Obviously, born and brought up in the UK. Parents were Nigerian. Lived in Nigeria for some years, as I've shared with you before. And so I've seen both sides of this thing called life. And when we talk about Western culture in terms of masses of materialism and wealth, is very predominant in Africa also. Very, very predominant in Nigeria. It's not just a Western thing. There's been a lot of emulation and simulation though, right? Which has then started to erode and cut into so-called culture. But I don't want to get too much into words because I've been taught and trained to be like a wordsmith these days because I was going to say, look, what is culture? You know what
mhm,
I mean? That's another big one. It's like when we say what is race, these are big, big, big things that need to be cut into. We can't afford to just be using words so glibly anymore. But just to not to sort of ramble too much, yeah, in Africa, for example, this whole concept of wealth,
mhm,
money, now we can't really talk about racism, for example, in Africa or in Nigeria, but we can definitely talk about discrimination,
mhm,
right? We can talk about things like colorism. Yes, these are things that are still plaguing the nation, plaguing the continent, that are having adverse effects on on millions, billions of people. Look, Nick, I'm saying this to say, after living there, born and brought up here, went to live out there, and there's certain things that were happening there which I said, look, I refuse to live this type of life,
mhm,
right? Not because I wanted to be a Westerner or British or whatever, but certain basics of human life. I said, no, I will not live like this. Yeah. And I returned here as a young man. Then I started to see again, okay, things over here. And I'm like, hold on a second. Why should I be living like this? Yeah, you get what I'm saying? So it's in that involvement, that realization of what life is, one
mhm,
can then start to be true to themselves. Look, I personally am healing. I'm not healed, I am healing. It's a continuous process. I'm healing from a lot of trauma, Nick, that I encountered, not in this country, but back home. You understand? And again, this is one of the concepts that sort of drove me then to set up Real Talk. Real Talk, unbeknown to me, was founded over 40 years ago. Yeah, when somebody said to me, Shala, what do you need? Remember, I've shared this with you before. What do you need? And
mhm,
I've never heard this before, Nick. And nobody had ever asked me this question. I was 2021. Nobody had ever asked me. I was always told, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it's no different to a degree today, where that question, because when I put that question to young people today, they're like, wow, he's asking me what I need, He's listening to me. He's sitting
mhm,
down talking to me. He's spending time with me. He's giving me some attention. And to some people, this is actually so foreign and so weird. And when I see the light in their eyes, I think that reminds me of how I was those years ago when I was asked the same question. And this is all young people need. This is all I would suggest that adults also need. We need to establish what is it we're looking for in life? What do we need? Yes.
mhm,
And then again, by the grace of God, we can then be instrumental in making that need happen, making it materialize, then the day has been valuable,
mhm,
right? The day has not been wasted. Something has happened. You see, and this is the mantra we stand by. Look, we're not here, real talk, we're not here to get fame. We're not here to start gathering a million followers or whatever. If that happens, so be it, right? We're not on this kind of social media crusade, if you like, to get famous. I'm not interested in fame. Yeah, it's not about fame.
mhm,
We're interested in terms of what you said as well, Nick. When you know what you've been through in your life, you know what you've encountered, You know the stepping stones of where help has been given, where you may not have even expected that help and that assistance, just like myself. And so our duty then is to pay that forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to pay it forward, not looking for. Some people ask me, Shola, why'd you do this? What's in it for you? I said, what's in it for me, guys and ladies, is that I just want to see some kind of flicker of hope and joy in your eyes. Yeah, that some fear has been allayed. Because the thing is that we weren't made, I saw a big word years ago. We weren't made with this spirit. You know, fear is a spirit, and it's a massive, very, very strong spirit. But we weren't made with that spirit. So we can be in fearful environments, but we as beings were not made with that spirit of fear, right? The word went on to say that we were made with what is it? With power, with love, and sound-mindedness.
Mm.
But it takes those three concepts to cancel out fear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Like fear is the natural, thing to protect us. But I think for me, the fears of like not being accepted and being judged and
It's
not being
environmental, though, isn't it?
controlled,
Yeah.
they're like human, like they're like put upon us. And I think that if we just became more compassionate, as more loving, more
Yeah.
understanding, those fears start to fall from us. When I'm in environments where people won't judge me, for instance, like my recovery community,
Right.
they know my story, they know where I've been, no one judges me. I don't go in there in a fear of not being accepted or being judged. I go in there in a fear like, whoa, I can breathe. And if we within our communities can stop judging one another,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and start loving one another and be more compassionate, then we will not run around in so much fear.
Well, this is it, Nick. I totally agree. Do you remember a film years ago, Waiting to Exhale?
I don't know.
Right? Go and Google it. Go and look it up. There's a film called Waiting to Exhale, and I said it to a couple. One of the guys shared it with me a couple of years ago. He said, "Look, why don't we have a setup called Men Waiting to Exhale?"
Right.
And again, we could say that not just exclusive to men, but waiting to exhale, waiting just a bit to just go. You know what I mean? Instead of just breathe.
Yeah.
Not being all pent up, all het up with all the stuff. You know what I mean? We've got riding about. Yeah. Just breathe.
Do you know, I did that the other day. I do that quite a bit. Like I'll just go, like it'll just come out of me.
Yeah.
And I was walking by somebody. I was getting on the tube the other day. It just came out of me. It's just like, Nick, exhale.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Ooh." I was like, "Sorry."
Bad did you feel? Nah, no apology needed, bro. But
no, I scared the person. But I always feel good when I exhale. I put it into my body now has understood that sometimes if I'm walking to an environment like the tube or something, if I just naturally, it's intuitive now. It'll just go, and it'll be quite, like a proper like exhale. But I just have to make sure that no one's standing in front of me and I don't scare them.
You don't blow them away.
Yeah. Surely, like we're like on your tag here is Real Talk Mentors. And I heard somebody, we'll kind of end it on this because we're running out of time.
Sure.
But I heard on a podcast the other day what people did, where they said where the word mentor came from. And then I started looking it up because I couldn't quite find it. But he said on the podcast, a mentor was an old, wild sailor. And a sailor who, like you imagine a sailor with a peg leg and scars and callous hands and, a few teeth missing. And they basically taught the younger sailors what ropes not to grab onto, when to duck, because they learned it the hard way. And I love the idea today of a mentor being someone who's been through some stuff, someone who's got a few scars and a few stories to tell, and then can have that kind of dual like the word educate means about educe to people. Yeah. The mentor does teach, but the mentor does learn. Like when I work with guys through recovery, like I work with a lot of guys and I sponsor them, and we have these one-on-one situations where I'm telling them my story. It creates trust. I show them this protocol. They follow it because they trust me. But while we're doing it, we're both learning from each other. And I really, and I heard the other day, like not like everybody needs some kind of mentor in their life. Not only a mentor, but they need to also have some. So again, I need a mentor, you know.
Yeah.
I can't just be the mentor, and it's all kind of, we're all
Exactly.
interwoven, where we're all learning one another. It's just a beautiful way to connect.
Yeah.
And I just,
It's,
I can't stress enough to people just to know that they don't have to do things alone, and to start looking for guides out there. The world will supply a guide for you, and it'll make you a guide.
Definitely, definitely. Nick, I love that analogy. Can I just add this just to what you said? Absolutely love that analogy. I just want to say I heard it once said also that you know, our scars can often become our trophies. Yeah. And I say that just to tap into what you said there about the sailor. Love that analogy so much, because I've been asked that same question, what is a mentor? And I basically put it out very simply, look, is somebody who gives guidance, is able to give guidance based on lived experience. Yeah. So just what you said there about the sailor, you know, peg leg, few teeth missing. I don't think I've got any teeth missing yet, but you know, you know,
these are fake.
A few of the marks are there, but yeah, a few of the scars are there. And if we're able to, you know, refresh others by those scars, and also refresh ourselves, because you know, when you look at your scar, you reflect. It makes you reflect, and it lets you remember how you got that. Yeah, and then hopefully then that puts you in a different frame of mind again to, you know, to move forward. So that analogy there, Nick, was I think it's spot on. It's a great one. I hope it's not copyrighted. I might have to bring that information.
Oh no, yeah. Do you know? I got it.
Yeah,
I wish I would have tagged the podcast. I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast. I can't.
Okay.
But if I ever come across it again, I'll let you know. But
yeah, so let me know. Let me know. I'll definitely tap into that. Yeah, but no, Nick.
Yeah.
Seriously, look, it's been great talking again. You know, this morning we've just vibed, haven't we? We've just talked, just chatted on a real tip. You know, people know this is not scripted. We've not had a discussion before. Prior to what was it last year we talked last like this, isn't it?
Yeah, we talked once. We do
it's
one of these.
Yeah,
once a year. Yeah, we'll continue to do it.
So did you remember the anniversary? Because when I got your call the other day, like, right, are you ready for today? Did you kind of have it marked in your?
You know, it's the universe, buddy. It's the universe, because I do remember the last time too. I think you just had a birthday, and I was like, oh, it has been a year.
Oh,
I'll have to look back.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Shola, I love you, man. I love you. I love what you're doing. Brother. You know, you just keep shining. You're a beautiful man, and what you're doing is beautiful. And I'm so grateful we're on this journey together. I'll put any links that you want me to do in the Facebook feed. If anyone needs to get a hold of Shola, how can they do that?
Yeah, so our website is literally realtalkmentors.org. Instagram is just Real Talk 247. The numbers 247, Real Talk 247. Those are the main links, main handles. Anything, those are the ones. Grab us that way. I'm always willing to have that listening here and have a chat. But can I just mention the talk, the men's forum, Thursdays, every Thursday, right? You'll get the details on our Instagram on Real Talk 247. And then the ladies now is monthly. The women's forum is monthly. It's Real Talk Mentors in collaboration with it's gone out of my head now. How can I forget? I Am In Me, CIC. Yeah, and that's hosted by Sasha. You know, great collaboration going on, men and women. And then we do transfer those into joint forums, sort of monthly and quarterly. So yeah, jump in.
Ping me all of those links. I'll put them in the Facebook feed.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll do.
All right, buddy. Thanks everyone so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, man.
You too. And thanks everybody for joining us. Don't forget to see you Thursday for some Tough Through Tender talks. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.